Okay, preparing to live stream this meeting. Okay, so we should be upping very soon. Awesome. All right, there we are. So let me go back to Zoom and share my screen, and we should be ready to go. So, oops. Sorry, I've got a lot of windows to sort of.
No, you're good. You're good.
I know. All right, from the beginning. Okay. We are going to share screen. Share. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Okay. And let us start from the beginning. Okay.
Perfect.
Well, welcome everyone. Again, this is our Book Bonanza presentation. We love to do these. We do them every 2 or 3 months or so. And we love to just tell you about new books coming up or things that you might be interested in. And like Emily mentioned before, she did send you the slides. So, you know, if you can't write something down fast enough, you can always just refer back to the presentation that she emailed. So, all right, let's get this going. Oh.
Okay, so you are all probably pretty familiar with how to get in touch with us at the fiction department, but just in case, friendly reminder, the number for the desk is there. So if you ever need to call and put anything on hold or call and just ask questions, we love questions. You can also find information about not only the fiction department, as well as events that we have coming up at schaumburglibrary.org. If you look under the events tab, you can see everything that's going on, book discussions, as well as things that are happening outside of the fiction department. And we do subscribe to Book Page. I know some of you come in regularly looking for the newest and latest Book Page. We have those at the fiction desk. And our media match option is something that we introduced over the summer while we were closed. So if you are looking for specific recommendations based on kind of what you like to read, there's a brief form that you can fill out on the website, again, letting us know what authors you like, what kinds of stories you like, what you've read and have liked, or have read and didn't like, so that we can, you know, better assist you with some personalized service there.
Okay. So we thought real quick that we would just talk about what we are reading. Sometimes, or at least for me, at least, that's how I get the best recommendations is from my friends and my coworkers and, oh, you should really read this. So actually just last night before I went to bed, I finished Meet Cute by Helena Hunting. If anyone hasn't heard the term meet cute, in these romance novels, it's a awkward encounter, or let's say, oh, accidentally spilled coffee on someone, but then, ooh, I kind of like this person now, and we start talking. So that's sort of what meet cute is. And so in this book, this now lawyer, when she was a kid, fangirled all over this former actor, and she was so embarrassed, but they ended up in law school together. And so they are thrown back together when she becomes the conservator for his younger sister. And so they get thrown together a lot of times as they're, you know, working to sort everything out. And the crazy aunt is trying to get custody of this little girl. So I really enjoyed it. And I know she's a popular author. So if that's your thing, I would give it a try.
And for something completely different, I recently finished The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. This is actually the first Ann Patchett novel I've ever read. Kind of been like a secret shame as a librarian that I've never read Ann Patchett before, but I read it for one of our recent book discussions. And I loved it. It's a great story. It kind of takes a lot of cues from fairy tales, but in a very modern setting, or at least modern, starting in the 50s and going all the way to the present. So we basically follow this family for essentially 5 decades. Really focusing on the brother and sister of the family who are children in the 40s, 50s. They lose their mother, or so they think. She leaves them. So they're left with a father, and then they are quickly introduced to a, you know, quote unquote evil stepmother who wreaks a little bit of havoc and brings some drama into the family, they end up being kind of banished from the house for circumstances that I won't describe for sake of spoiler alert. And they have to kind of make their own way and kind of find their own lives while still staying very connected to each other. So it's really the story at the heart of it about this brother and sister and their sort of lasting connection. It's told beautifully, incredibly well written. And if you like audiobooks, Tom Hanks reads the audiobook. So there's a bonus there, and he does it incredibly well, like he does everything. So I would recommend The Dutch House by Ann Patchett.
All right. So before we dive into our first slide, we just wanted to mention that we have tons and tons and tons of books on these slides. We unfortunately will not be able to cover every book on each of the slides, so we're just going to hit some of the highlights for 2 or 3 of the books, but at least you have the titles if something looks interesting for you, or if you recognize a name or a title. So with that being said, we included just a couple days ago, last week on Thursday, there was The Unspoken by Ian K. Smith, and that is a new book, a series about an ex-cop turned private investigator in Chicago. And then The Midnight Circus is by Jane Yolen, who is mostly really well known for her sort of middle grade and juvenile fiction books. But she has started writing a few adult books lately, and this one is a set of dark fantasy stories. Okay.
All right, and Tuesday, October 6th, so tomorrow. So we have some recognizable names on this slide. So Elin Hilderbrand, Her Troubles in Paradise, is actually book 3 in the Paradise series that she's doing. I believe this is a trilogy, so I think this is the final book. And at last, all secrets will be revealed in terms of what brought Irene and her son to St. John. So if you are kind of following that story, the conclusion will debut tomorrow. We also have The Searcher by Tana French, which is a standalone. It's not part of her Dublin Murder Squad series. Sorry. And this features, it's kind of still in the similar vein of Dublin Murder Squad. What we have here is a retired detective who moves to an isolated village in rural Ireland, kind of looking for some peace and quiet, but soon, of course, finds himself involved with a local boy whose brother is missing and needs some help. So tries to get out, but the hands pull him back in. And of course, we have additional authors that I think every author on here is pretty well known. We have a new one by Dean Koontz, a new one by Gregory Maguire. If you are a fan of Wicked and everything that he's done with the Wizard of Oz, now he is delving into, let's see here, the Hans Christian Andersen with his story, The Wild Swans, and he's doing his take on that. And we have what I am probably most excited about, Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. It is a prequel to Practical Magic. So if you're a fan of those books and the Owens family and sisters, we're going to get a prequel.
All right. So still some more books for tomorrow. We have Cardiff by the Sea by Joyce Carol Oates, and this is a set of 4 novellas. We have Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. Let's see, what else do we got? And that one is about a family vacation on Long Island. This couple is renting sort of a cabin, sort of on a more isolated part of the island. And late at night, they get a knock on their door. And they're like, what's going on? And it is the older couple, the owners of the cabin, who rented it to them. And a blackout has swept New York. There's no email, there's no phones. And so, the 4 of them in this house, this cabin, are trying to figure out what's going on. We have Still Life by Val McDermid. We have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And this one looks really interesting to me. So in 1714, a woman makes a bargain to live forever, but The curse of that is no one will ever remember her. Soon as they leave, everyone forgets her, except 300 years later, there is a man who remembers her. So that's where that story starts to go. We have The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton, which is set in 1634, and it's a play on Sherlock Holmes. And then we have Forever by Your Side by Tracy Peterson.
Okay, so still tomorrow, we have The Ministry of the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. This one is a near future novel that is a gripping exploration of climate change, technology, politics, and the human behaviors that drive these forces. So if you're a sci-fi fan, maybe something to check out. We also have Snow by John Bando. Let's see, Detective Inspector St. John Stratford has been summoned to County Wexford to investigate a murder. A parish priest has been found dead in Ballyglass House, the family seat of the aristocratic, secretive Osborne family. We also have Missionaries by Phil Clay. So if you might be familiar with him, he had a book that came out just a couple of years ago. It was a National Book Award winner, Redeployment. Phil Clay is a veteran and served in Afghanistan, and so he has kind of fictionalized a lot of his experiences and the experiences of his fellow soldiers. That's what he did in Redeployment, and that's what he's doing once again, kind of. Let's see, it is set in Colombia, among other fronts of America's wars, as 4 lives become fatally entangled thanks to our country's gift for protecting its power into situations it half understands. So very interesting take from him. Again, as a veteran, he has a lot of personal experience that he brings to his writing and happens to also be a great writer. So it's great for him. And then we have An Irish Country Welcome by Patrick Taylor, which is number 15 in the Irish Country series. So won't spend a lot of time talking about that one. If you recognize the name, you're probably already reading the series, but if you're interested, maybe go back to number 1. And then Secrets of Winter by Nicola Upson, which is a number 9 in the Josephine Tay series. Josephine Tay. So sorry.
Okay, and then I just wanted to add a quick thing. The Dear Child by Romy Hausman.
I've over that.
I read it. As a Gone Girl meets Room kind of book. So if you're a fan of either one of those, you might want to give this one a try. Okay.
Yeah, I had meant to mention that one because that slide, that is the one that I'm most looking forward to. So, Jessica.
All right. Still more tomorrow. So we have Murder is in the Air by Frances Brodie, and this is Kate Shackleton, number 12, set in England in 1930, and there's a murder at a garden party. We have Cuyahoga by Pete Beattie. We have The Night Workers by Brian Selfon, which is about a Brooklyn family of money launderers, and one of the runners goes missing with $250,000. We have The Valkyrie Protocol by David Weber. He is a popular science fiction author, if you have not heard of him before. And then we have Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. And I'm really excited about this one because I was actually able to get a pre-publication copy of this. So I have actually already read this. It is a diverse romance. It is about a TV actor and this girl, April, who is a geologist. They are fan fiction writers about the show that he stars in. But secretly, they've been writing to each other over the fan fiction site for years now, but they don't know it's each other until he finds out, and then he doesn't tell her. Hiding secrets never goes really well, but I really loved it. And if you're looking for a good contemporary romance to read, I would highly suggest this one. And then we have A Death Long Overdue by Eva Gates, and that is part of the Lighthouse Library Mysteries series.
Okay, so still tomorrow. We are still in Tomorrowland. We have Daughter of Black Lake by Kathy Marie Buchanan. In a world of pagan traditions and deeply rooted love, a girl in jeopardy must save her family and community in this transporting historical novel. I am looking forward to this one, I have to say. We also have the Archive of the Forgotten. So continuing with libraries, as we saw from the last slide, this is number 2 in the Hell's Library series, which is just an exciting name of a series. As a librarian, I enjoy that. We also have Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker. And this is by actually Shannon MAGUIRE. It maybe is a more familiar name. She is writing as a Deborah Baker in this one. And so in this book, she introduces readers to a world of talking trees and sarcastic owls, of dangerous mermaids and captivating queens in an exceptional tale for readers who are young at heart. So maybe want to check out, again, if you are a fan of Shannon MAGUIRE, this is her writing under a pseudonym. And we also have When We Were Young and Brave by Hazel Gaynor, which takes place during World War II. Murder on Cold Street by Sherry Thomas, which is number 5 in the Lady Sherlock series. So if you have read and enjoyed that series, this is part of that. Or if it sounds interesting, just if you've been watching Enola Holmes and things like Enola Holmes rather on Netflix, goodness, and you're interested in some Sherlock adjacent stuff, maybe a series to check out. This is only book 5, so you still have time to you've got time to catch up. And also Zero Zone by Scott O'Connor.
Okay, and I just want to, just because I'm so excited about it, I actually have read the first book in the Hell's Library series. So super quick, basic premise is Hell has a library, and the library needs a librarian. So you can sort of start imagining where that sort of goes, and I really enjoyed it. So I definitely want to pick up this book too.
Nice.
And we still have more books tomorrow. We can tell it's the first of the month because we have a lot of books. So first we have Point of Danger by Irene Hannon, which is a Christian suspense novel. It's about a radio host that gets harassed, and it is book 1 of a new series. We have The Price of Valor by Susan May Warren. We have Bright and Dangerous Objects by Annalise McIntosh. We have Her Secret Song by Mary Connolly, which is a Christian historical romance. We have The Shepherd's Wife by Angela Elwell Hunt. And then we have Every Now and Then by Leslie Kagan. And this book is set in 1960s Washington. There are 3 11-year-old friends, and in this town, 3 patients escaped from the local mental institution. I apologize. And so the main part of this book is 60 years later, one of the characters, one of these 11-year-old friends, now wants to investigate what really happened. Where's my pointer? There we go.
Okay, so next week on Tuesday, October 13th, we have The Blind Light by Stuart Evers, which takes place in 1959. 2 young soldiers, Drummond and Carter, one working class, the other privileged, form an intense and unlikely friendship at Doomtown, a training center that simulates the aftermath of an atomic strike. We also have A Time for Mercy by John Grisham, which is number 3 in his Jake Brigance novels. If you remember Jake Brigance, I can't say that last name, I apologize, from all the way back in A Time to Kill, and portrayed by Matthew McConaughey in the film. This is more of his story, and we last saw him not that long ago, so it's sort of a surprise that we kind of keep coming back to this character. But if it's one that you enjoy, we are still in Canton, Mississippi, following the lives of the people down there. We also have Return to Virgin River by Robin Carr, and this is number 19 in the Virgin River novels. Also Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell, which is a taut and white-knuckled thriller following a group of people whose lives shockingly intersect when a young woman disappears. So if you're a fan of Lisa Jewell and her suspense thrillers, this is a new one from her. And we also have A Song for the Dark Times by Ian Rankin, Goodnight Beautiful by Amy Malloy, and The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Haro. Again, one that I'm excited about because it's very much on brand for the kinds of things that I like to read. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the wild dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes.
All right. So still going for the 13th, we have The Duke of Caladan by Brian Herbert. And the Herberts they are the authors of the Dune science fiction series. We have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. If you have not heard about her before, she is a Native American fantasy writer. She had the Trail of Lightning trilogy, and this is a new book. It is set in the pre-Columbian Americas in South America, and it is a new fantasy novel. We have The Lost Love Song by Minnie Dark, which is about a man who has a fiance who is a concert pianist, and she's writing this ode for him, but unfortunately she dies, he doesn't get to hear it. And so as he's trying to cope with this loss, he meets, these other lost souls. And actually this ode, the song that, his fiance had written, has been passed around from musician to musician to musician until it finally makes its way back to the main character who can finally hear it. So we have The Lost Shtetl by Max Gross. We have Attack Surface by Corey Doctorow. And then we have Simmer Down by Sarah Smith. And this is a contemporary romantic comedy set in Hawaii about competing food trucks.
Okay, so still next Tuesday, October 13th. Let's see, we have Ring Shout by, I won't try to pronounce the first name or middle name because I don't want to mess it up. But let's see, this is a dark fantasy historical novella that gives a supernatural twist to the Ku Klux Klan's reign of terror. We also have Shelter in Place by David Leavitt. It's the Saturday after the 2016 presidential election, and in a plush weekend house in Connecticut, an intimate group of friends, New Yorkers all, have gathered to recover from what they consider the greatest political catastrophe of their lives. So take your own temperatures of whether you would want to read that or not, right? Particularly right now, but that is what that book is about. We also have The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk, The Sewing Season by Katie Kauner, A Resolution at Midnight by Shelley Noble, which is number 3 in the Lady Dunbridge mystery series, and They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, which is a psychological thriller about 2 women who give bad men exactly what they deserve. It is a feminist serial killer story perfect for fans of the TV series Killing Eve or the books by Chelsea Cain.
All right, so we have some more books. We have Three Little Truths by, I believe it's pronounced Anya Shortall. And this book is sort of described as Big Little Lies meets 1 + 1. So it's about these 3 female neighbors, and each have their own sort of secrets and things about their past and regrets that they kind of want to forget. So they're all looking for a fresh start. We have No Heaven for Good Boys by Keisha Bush. And this one is sort of billed as a modern day Oliver Twist set in Senegal. We have Joey Punches the Future in the Dick by David Wong. We have The Land by Thomas Maltzman. We have The Light at Wincliffe by Sarah E. Ladd. And this is the 3rd book in a Christian romance Regency series. We have Jeeves and the Leap of Faith, a novel in homage to P.G. Wodehouse by Ben Scott. And then we have Only Truth by Julie Cameron.
Okay, so Tuesday, October 20th, we have The Silence by Don DeLillo. Let's see. A timely and compelling novel set in the near future about 5 people gathered together in a Manhattan apartment in the midst of a catastrophic event. We also have The Last Druid by Terry Brooks. And this is number 4. Oh, okay. That caught me off guard because I was like, there are so many Shannara books. But this is number 4 in the fall of Shannara. So kind of the subset, a subset within that trilogy. This is book 4, and it is the conclusion of the Fall of Shannara saga. We also have Plain Bad Heroines by Emily Danforth. Oops, wrong page. Girl in the Mirror by Rose Carlyle. Machine by Elizabeth Bear, which is that Machine by Elizabeth Bear is number 2 in the White Space series. And it takes place on a space station that begins to unravel when a routine search and rescue mission returns after going dangerously awry. We also have Autumn Skies by Denise Hunter, which is number 3 in the Bluebell Inn romance series. And this is a Christian romance series that is set in the small lake town of Bluebell, North Carolina. We also have To Hold Up the Sky by Ian Liu. And this is a sci-fi short story collection. And also The Mirror Man by Jane Gilmartin, which is a sci-fi thriller. So lots of sci-fi on this slide. Jessica's very excited.
All right, we have our first Monday James Patterson release. If anyone hasn't been able to sort of pick up on it yet, James Patterson is very special. So his books actually usually publish by themselves on Mondays instead of Tuesdays, which new books normally release on. So that's why you see a lot of Tuesdays in our slides. So this one is actually a standalone novel. An accountant is murdered, and the suspects are the personal chef, the wife, and the maid. So who did it? You have to read and find out. Okay, so moving on to our next Tuesday on the 27th, we have The Sentinel by Lee Child, and it's worth noting that this is another Jack Reacher book, but this is actually the first book now written with Andrew Child. And if anyone hasn't heard, Lee Child is actually retiring from writing the Jack Reacher books, but his brother, Andrew, is actually going to pick up and keep writing them. And Lee Child's only sort of requirement is he wanted his brother to take the last name Child as well. So we're going to start to see a shift between Lee Child and Andrew Child. We have The Shakeup by Stuart Woods, and that's a book in the Stone Barrington series. We have Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella. And if you haven't heard of her, she is the author of the Shopaholic series. We have The Wonder Boy of Whistle Stop by Fanny Flagg. You Betrayed Me by Lisa Jackson. And this is the 4th book in the San Francisco series, and it comes after the 2017 You Will Pay novel. And then we have Truly, Madly, Deeply by Karen Kingsbury. The Cold Millions by Jess Walter. And then Cubana by Jaquavis Coleman. And this one is an urban love story and a man seeks a Cuban voodoo doctor in an attempt to try to gain advantage in a court case.
Okay, so still on Tuesday, October 27th, we have The House of Correction by Nikki French. Tabitha is accused of murder. She is in prison awaiting trial. There is a strong case against her, and she can't remember what happened on December 21st. She is alone, frightened, and confused, but somehow, from the confines of her cell, she needs to prove everyone wrong. We also have Inside Story by Martin Amis. Memorial by Brian Washington, which is a funny, sexy, profound dramedy about two young people at a crossroads in their relationship in the limits of love. We have Stories from Suffragette City by M.J. Rose et al., because there are a lot of people who have contributed to this. This is a collection of short stories from a chorus of best-selling writers set on the same day, October 23rd, 1915, in which over 1 million women marched for the right to vote in New York City. So some of the contributors to the stories that are in this are a lot of names that we will recognize, the aforementioned M.J. Rose, also Lisa Wingate, Steve Barry, Paula McLean, Christina Baker Klein, Megan Chance. So lots of people contributing, again, to that short story collection. We have Crazy Stupid Bromance by Lissa K. Adams, which is the Bromance Book Club book number 3. So if you're following that, this is book 3. A Crime of a Different Stripe by Sally Goldenbaum, which is a Seaside Knitters book number 4, so a cozy mystery. If you are into cozy mysteries, this is perhaps one to check out, a series to check out, rather. Fortune Favors the Dead by Stephen Spotswood, which is a new series introducing Pentecost and Parker, 2 unconventional female detectives who couldn't care less about playing by the rules in their cases and in their lives. And last one on the slide, Detroit City Mafia by an author who just goes by the name India. After being left for dead by her mother, dissed by her peers, held responsible for her siblings, and forgotten by society, Murdana Carter finds herself in one hell of a predicament. With no money, food, or electricity, she learns quickly how to survive.
So a few more books from Tuesday the 27th. We have The Forgotten Daughter by Joanna Goodman. We have The Tower of Fools by Andrzej Sapkowski. If you haven't heard of him, he is the author of the Witcher novels, which was really huge on Netflix about not quite a year ago, pretty close. So this is actually a new series of his. It is a 12th century era fantasy book set in the Holy Inquisition era. We have Cold as Ice by Allison Brennan, which is part of her Lucy Kincaid series. How the Multiverse Got Its Revenge by Kay Eason. We have Curses Are for Cats by Tamara Berry, and this is the 3rd book in her cozy mystery series, Eleanor Wilde. We have Rescue You by Alicia Whistler. And then we have Jane in Love by Rachel Givney, which is about what might happen if Jane Austen time travels 200 years into the future.
Okay, Sunday, November 1st, in a wild twist. Books don't usually come out on Sundays. I was shocked when we were putting this together and I saw that. I was like, huh? Okay, anyways. So just a couple that are coming out on this Sunday, fresh after Halloween. We have The Haunting of Bryn Wilder by Wendy Webb. After a devastating loss, Bryn Wilder escaped to Wharton, a tourist town on Lake Superior, to reset. Checking into a quaint boarding house for the summer, she hopes to put her life into perspective. In her fellow lodgers, she finds a friendly company of strangers. The frail Alice, cared for by a married couple who with a heartbreaking story of their own, Luann, the eccentric and lovable owner of the inn, and Dominic, an unsettling, handsome man inked from head to toe in mesmerizing tattoos. And then also Spellbreaker by Charlie Holmberg. I don't have notes on that one, so apologies.
So Spellbreaker is a new series by this author, and she is the author of the Paper Magician series. If you're familiar with those. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to Tuesdays in November. We have Fortune and Glory by Janet Ivanovich, which is the 27th Stephanie Plum novel. We have Hidden in Plain Sight by Jeffrey Archer, and that is the 2nd book in his William Warwick series. We have The Dirty South by John Connolly, which is part of his Charlie Parker mystery series. We have White Ivy by Susie Yang. We have Burden of Proof by T. Davis Bunn. We have A Galway Epiphany by Ken Bruen, and that is part of his Jack Taylor series. And then finally, we have The Man in the Microwave Oven by Susan Cox, and that is the first book in the Theo Bogart series. Lots of series books today.
Yeah, there are so many series books that are coming out at this during this part of the year. Okay, so Tuesday, November 3rd, we have Miss Benson's Beetle by Rachel Joyce. Marjorie Benson's life ended the day her father walked out of his study and never came back. 40 years later, abandoning a dull job, she advertises for an assistant. The successful candidate is to accompany Marjorie on an expedition to the other side of the world to search for a beetle that may or may not exist. And that is beetle as in like car, I think, maybe. Or maybe it's an actual beetle. I'm not entirely sure. You'll have to read to find out. We also have 1637, No Peace Beyond the Line by Eric Flint, which is number 2 in his Commander Cantrell in the West Indies series. Let's see, we also have the Best American Mystery Stories 2020, which kind of explains itself. This is this year's edition, and it is edited by CJ Box, who is a name that we all probably recognize, especially if you're a mystery fan. Let's see, we also have The Escape by Lisa Harris, which is the first book in a new series by her, the U.S. Marshals series, which is a romantic suspense series. A Picture of Love by Beth Wiseman, which is also the first in a new series, her Amish Inn series. And we have The Gentleman and the Thief by Sarah Eden, which is book 2 in her proper romance Victorian series. And Shadow Sands by Robert, I'm never entirely sure on how to pronounce Brinda, which is book 2 in his Kate Marshall series. Sorry, Jess, what were you going to say?
Oh, no. Apologize to all the authors if you're listening and hearing us massacre us trying to pronounce your names.
Yeah, that's on us.
Okay, so we have Midnight Train to Prague by Carol Windley. We have Double Agent by Tom Bradby, and that is part of his Kate Henderson series. We have Things We Didn't Say by Amy Lynn Green, and this is about a translator at a German prisoner of war camp here in the United States. We have Too Much Lip by Melissa Lukashenko. We have The Harpy by Megan Hunter. It's billed as part revenge story, part fairy tale about marriage and infidelity and families. We have The Right Kind of Fool by Sarah Loudon Thomas. In Deep by Blue Sapphire. And then we have The Promised Land by Elizabeth Musser, which is about a mother who joins her son on the Camino pilgrimage.
Okay, so we also have on Tuesday, November 10th, The Law of Innocence by Michael Connolly, which is book 7 in his Mickey Holler series. Excuse me, sorry. We also have Marauder by Clive Cussler. The Kingdom by Joe Nesba. In the Lion's Den by Barbara Taylor Bradfield, which is number 2 in her House of Falconer series. We have Whispering Hearts by V.C. Andrews, her estate still keeps writing and publishing books, and this is book number 3 in the House of Secrets series from the estate of V.C. Andrews. The English countryside is beautiful, but for Emma Corey, it cannot compare to the bright life of New York City. Tired of performing only in pubs and at church, she announces she's moving to America, and her conservative father disowns her on the spot. We also have the Moonflower Murders by Anthony Horowitz, which is book 2 in his Susan Ryland series. And we have The Archer by Paulo Coelho. So if you're a fan of The Alchemist by him, we have a new book. In The Archer, we meet Tetsuya, a man once famous for his prodigious gift with a bow and an arrow, but who has since retired from public life, and the boy who comes searching for him. And we also have After All I've Done by Nina Hardy.
Okay, some more books for the 10th. We have Wyoming True by Diana Palmer, and she is a fairly well-known romance author. We have Cobble Hill by Cecily von Ziegesar. We have Without a Brew by Ellie Alexander, and this is a book in her Sloane Krauss Cozy Mystery series. We have Head Wounds by Michael McGarrity, Sarina by Ellen Alpsten. We have Little Cruelties by Liz Nugent, and this book is about 3 very competitive brothers, only one survives. And then finally, The Arrest by Jonathan Lethem, and this book is sort of described as a not post-apocalyptic, but a post-collapse novel. There is this event called The Arrest, and it's about 2 brothers, the man who comes between them in a nuclear-powered supercar. That must be the supercar in the picture. I'd love to have that for going through traffic.
Yes. Okay, more on Tuesday, November 10th. We have Absence of Mercy by S.M. Goodwin. This is another debut in a series, or series debut rather. It is a Leitner and Law mystery, book number 1. Jasper Leitner is a decorated Crimean war hero and the most admired inspector in London's Metropolitan Police. Along with a chest full of medals, he's got a head injury that's left large chunks of his memory missing. But Jasper's biggest problem is his father, the Duke of Percy, who, enraged by a series of front-page newspaper stories extolling Jasper's exploits, decides he's had enough of embarrassment and uses his political connections to keep his son out of the headlines and out of the police force. We also have The Factory Witches of Lowell by C.S. Mallory. C.S. Mallory's The Factory of Witches is a riveting historical fantasy about witches going on strike in the historical mill town of Lowell, Massachusetts. So that should be interesting. I think I'm going to check that one out. We also have Everything Changes by Catherine Bybee, which is book number 3 in her Creek Canyon series. The Turning Tide by Katrina McPherson, which is number 14 in her Dandy Gilver series. We have They're Gone by E.A. Barrett. On Deadly Tides by Elizabeth Duncan, which is book number 11 in her Penny Brannigan mystery series. And Lady Brewer of London by Karen Brooks.
Okay. All right, so we have Murder in Old Bombay by Nev March, who is a newer mystery author. We have Fallen Angel by Tracy Borman, and this is set in the Stuart era of England, and it is the final book in the Frances Gorgeous trilogy. We have From a Certain Point of View, as seen by the picture on your screen. So what Story Wars has been doing a lot lately is they gather together all these authors to write stories celebrating either a specific movie or a character or something. So if you're a Star Wars fan, I would highly recommend it. We have the Transatlantic Book Club by Felicity Hayes McCoy. We have Mimi Lee Reads Between the Lines by Jennifer Chow, and that is the second book in her Sassy Cat Mysteries series. We have The Cul-de-sac War by Melissa Ferguson, and then we have Comrade Koba by Robert Littell, which is about a naive child who meets a Soviet dictator. Interesting premise.
Okay, more on Tuesday, or have we just been on Tuesday, November 10th forever?
This is the last one.
I feel like there are a lot of books coming out this day. So we have Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellfleur. We have Little Threats by Emily Schultz, which is a taut whodunit and a haunting snapshot of the effects of violent crime. Little Threats tells the story of a woman who served 15 years in prison for murder, and now it's time to find out if she's guilty. We also have Leopard's Rage by Christine Feehan, which is book number 12 in her Leopard People series. So if you're a Christine Feehan fan. We also have You Will Never Know by S.A. Prentice. The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter, which is book number 2 in his Burning series. The Office of Historical Connections by Danielle Evans. And She Lies Close by Sharon Doring. And Murder by Milk Bottle by Lynn Truss, which is book number 3 in the Constable Twitten mysteries.
Woohoo, New Tuesday. So we have Daylight by David Baldacci, and this is a book in his Atlee Pine series. We have All That Glitters by Danielle Steele, which is about a young woman who must overcome adversity. We have Piece of My Heart by Mary Higgins Clark. Hot to Trot by M.C. Beaton, who writes the Agatha Raisin mystery books. We have V2 by Robert Harris, which is a World War II thriller about a German rocket engineer, a former actress turned British spy, and the Nazi rocket program. We have Tom Clancy's Shadow of the Dragon by Mark Cameron. And then we have Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay, still on Tuesday, November 17th, we have One of Our Own by Jane Haddam. The Star-Crossed Sisters of Tuscany by Lori Nelson Spielman. Pretending by Holly Bourne. Excuse me, sorry. The Orchard by David Hoppin, which is a debut, and it is a poignant coming-of-age story about a devout Jewish high school student whose plunge into the secularized world threatens everything he knows of himself. We also have The Flip Side by James Bailey. The Night of Fire by last name Erickson, because I won't try, which is book 8 in the Anne Lindell mysteries. And Do Not Disturb by Claire Douglas, which it should be noted, this book actually came out originally in 2018 in paperback, and it's done so well that it has earned the right to be published in hardcover. So this is kind of a re-release, sort of. And I'll give a little bit about it. So following a traumatic event in London, Christy Woodhouse packs up her family and moves back to her native Wales. There, she sets up her new home with her husband and two young daughters and goes into business with her difficult mother managing a guest house in Brecon Beacons. I struggle with British names.
All right. So we have Here is the Beehive by Sarah Crassan, The Bad Muslim Discount by Syed Masood. We have The Bright and Breaking Sea by Chloe Neal. And if you're familiar with her, she is the author of the Chicagoland Vampires series. And this is book 1 in a new fantasy series about Captain Kit Brightling. We have Little Witches by Michelle Adams. We have The Short, the Long, and the Tall by Jeffrey Archer, which is a book of short stories. We have The Boy Toy by Nicola Marsh. And then we have Earth Eater by Dolores Reyes. And this is about a young woman who has a compulsion to eat earth. And it gives her visions of those murdered and missing. So that's kind of the sort of a thriller mystery sort of interesting premise to a book.
Okay, so some more on Tuesday, November 17th. We have MAGUIRE by David Hagberg, which is actually book number 25 in his Kirk MAGUIRE series. We have The Saints of Salvation by Peter Hamilton, which is book number 3 in his Salvation sequence. We have The Burning God by R.F. Tang. And this is the exciting end to his Poppy War, or her, I'm not entirely sure, his or her Poppy Wars trilogy, which is an award-winning epic fantasy. So if you have been reading that, we will get a conclusion soon. And To Steal a Heart by Jen Toronto, which is another series debut. It is the Bleecker Street Inquiry Agency, book number 1. After a childhood as a street thief, Gabrielle Goodhue thought she'd put her past behind her until a fellow resident at her boarding house is unjustly accused of theft. In the middle of breaking into a safe that holds the proof to prove her friend's innocence, Gabrielle is interrupted by Nicholas Quinn, the man she once considered her best friend until he abandoned her. And then also Nights When Nothing Happened by Simon Hahn, which is set in the poverty and glamour of Restoration London, the golden streets of Venice, and on the tensely contested frontier of early America, this novel of greed and desire for love, for wealth, for a child, for home.
Okay, we have another Monday James Patterson release, Deadly Cross, and this is part of his Alex Cross series. Okay, coming to the end, Tuesday the 24th. We have The Awakening by Nora Roberts, and this is book 1 of a new fantasy series she's writing. She wrote the Year One trilogy, so she must have really liked writing fantasy, so she's doing it again. We have How to Raise an Elephant by Alexander McCall Smith. We have Dark Tides by Philippa Gregory, and this is not part of her English Queens, Henry VIII sort of era that she writes about. We have Warlord by Bernard Cornwell, and this is the final book in his Saxon Tales. We have Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline, and if this sounds familiar, it is the sequel to Ready Player 1. We have The 30 Names of Night by Zane Juk Kadar, and then we have The Diplomat's Wife by Pam Janoff, and this is about a Holocaust survivor in 1945 who marries a British diplomat, but then the British government wants her help to find a communist spy.
Okay, on November 24th, we also have A Lady Compromise by Darcy Wilde, which is book number 4 in her Rosalind Thorne series for fans of, if you're a fan of Jane Austen and Regency England, that's a series to maybe check out. There's also Death, Diamonds, and Deception by Rosemary Simpson, which is a Gilded Age mystery, book number 5. Confessions in B Flat by Donna Hill. The Malt in Our Stars by Sarah Fox, which is a literary pub mystery. If you couldn't tell that it was a cozy mystery by the puntastic name, it is. Also The Notorious by Minerva Spencer, and Collateral by Denisha Diamond, which is part of her Parker Crime series books.
Okay, just a few more. We have Meet Isabel Puddles by M.V. Byrne, and this is the first book in the Mitten State mystery series. It's about a widow named Isabel who lives on the shores of Lake Michigan and the mysteries and investigations that she gets pulled into. We have The Peculiar Fate of Holly Banks by Julie Valerie. We have Irena's War by James Shipman, and this is about a Polish resistance fighter who saves Jewish children during the Holocaust. And then we have The Poison Prince by S.C. Emmett.
Okay, and not to be left out, of course, we have James Patterson releasing some books in December. We didn't really get into December releases because there aren't many, but at our next book Bonanza, which will be probably early 2021, we'll cover anything that came out in December. But for what it's worth, James Patterson seems to be kind of dipping his toe into true crime as opposed to fictionalized crime. So we have a book by him and some other authors, The Last Days of John Lennon. And we, of course, have another book in his Red series. Book 6 will be out in December.
Okay, and last but not least, we really can't get into any of these, but we wanted to create a list of some holiday reads for you. This is probably not a comprehensive list, but we wanted to try and gather as many as we could for you guys. So if you really like the holiday reads around this time of year, this is a good list to go off of and see if anything looks interesting to you.
And if you would like to talk about what you're reading and get more reading recommendations from your fellow library patrons, you can join us next Monday, October 12th at 2 p.m. for What Are You Reading?, which is exactly what it sounds like. Some of you have maybe participated in the past, either in person here in the library, or we've done it a few times on Zoom. Allison will be hosting that, and you can just show up, and it's basically just a casual conversation to talk about what you've been reading, and again, to get some more book recommendations from other patrons and other librarians. So you can register for that, just like you registered for this one. You'll get a Zoom link, and you can join us there at 2 p.m. And just as a reminder, here's how you can get in touch with us and ask questions and et cetera, either via our website, or you can call the Fiction Desk. If you need specifically e-media help, there is our e-media helpline number there. You can give us a call and we'll help you download ebooks and figure out any troubleshooting errors that come up. We love answering those questions as well.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for attending. We hope you enjoyed it and got some good recommendations. So thank you again. And, please do feel free to stop by the fiction department on the first floor at the Central Library. We would love to see you. And our days are very boring if nobody wants to talk to us. So we would love to see you.
And if you have specific questions about any of the titles that we presented but didn't go into detail on, feel free to respond to the email that I sent earlier this morning that contains all of the slides, and Jessica and I will get back to you and let you know more information.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks all so much for being here.